My name is Amanda, and at 28, I never imagined my greatest life lesson would come from those who should have protected me most. For years ago, I was a promising art history student with a bright future until my own parents and brother orchestrated my expulsion, watching coldly as my life shattered. They planted evidence, spread lies, and celebrated my downfall. Now that I've rebuilt everything they destroyed, they're desperately knocking at my door, begging to return. Before I share how my own family stabbed me in the back, let me know where you're watching from. Like and subscribe to join me on this journey of justice that changed everything. I grew up in a picture-perfect colonial house in suburban Connecticut, where neighborhood children envied our manicured lawn and my seemingly ideal family. My father, Harold, was a successful corporate lawyer whose imposing presence filled rooms before he even spoke. His steel-gray eyes constantly evaluated everything and everyone, especially his children, against impossible standards of success. To outsiders, he appeared devoted and accomplished. Only those living under his roof knew about the cold disappointment that radiated from him whenever we failed to meet his expectations. My mother, Eleanor, was the consummate community leader, PTA president, charity gala organizer, and unofficial social director of our exclusive neighborhood. Her perfect blonde bob never had a hair out of place, just as our family image could never show a single crack. She measured her worth through others' perceptions, collecting compliments about her children like trophies. The problem was, she cared far more about what we represented than who we actually were. Then there was my brother Justin, 3 years my senior, and the undisputed golden child of our family. From the moment he was born, Justin embodied everything my father valued: analytical thinking, athletic prowess, and unshakable ambition. Their bond was instant and unbreakable. I still remember watching them discuss stock portfolios when Justin was only 12, my father beaming with pride while I sat with my sketchbook, invisible in the corner of our living room. School became my sanctuary early on. While Justin brought home trophies for debate team and baseball championships, I discovered my passion for art history and painting. By 16, my watercolors had won regional competitions, and my academic record was flawless. Yet at our dinner table, my achievements barely registered. "That's nice, Amanda," my mother would say before quickly pivoting to Justin's latest accomplishment. My father rarely acknowledged my successes at all. "Art is a hobby, not a career," he declared when I mentioned wanting to study art history. "Justin is pre-law. He understands practical ambition." Despite their dismissal, I poured myself into applications for art history programs. When the acceptance letter from Westfield University arrived with a full scholarship, I couldn't contain my excitement. This prestigious program accepted only 15 students annually. I rushed home, letter clutched in my hand, heart pounding with validation. My mother read it and offered a tight smile. "Well, that's certainly unexpected. Though I wish it were somewhere more recognizable. The Jackson's daughter just got into Yale." My father barely looked up from his newspaper. "Art history? What exactly does one do with that degree?" "Justin's law school track will give him actual security." Justin smirked from across the room. "Congrats on finding a way to spend." That night, I cried silent tears into my pillow, but also made a promise to myself. Westfield would be my fresh start, away from their shadows and constant comparisons. I'd build a life where my passions weren't dismissed and my accomplishments weren't measured against my brothers. The summer before college, I noticed subtle changes in my family's behavior. My mother suddenly wanted to bond, asking invasive questions about my new university friends before I'd even met them. My father insisted on reviewing my class selections, suggesting business electives instead of the specialized art courses I'd chosen. Justin began making snide remarks about college dropouts and starving artists at family dinners. The controlling behavior escalated as my departure date approached. My mother tried redecorating my dorm room without consulting me. My father accidentally scheduled a family vacation that overlapped with freshman orientation. When I stood my ground, insisting on attending orientation. The tension thickened. "You've become so selfish, Amanda," my mother sniffed. "Family should come first." The night before I left for Westfield, I overheard my parents talking in their bedroom. "She's becoming too independent," my father grumbled. "This art school nonsense will fill her head with unrealistic expectations." "Harold, we can still guide her from a distance," my mother replied. "Justin can keep an eye on her since he'll only be an hour away." A chill ran down my spine, but I dismissed it as typical parental anxiety. I couldn't have known then that this conversation foreshadowed the systematic destruction of everything I was about to build. The morning I left for Westfield, Justin hugged me with unusual intensity. "Don't worry, little sister," he whispered. "We won't let you stray too far." At the time, I interpreted his words as awkward, brotherly affection. Only later would I understand their true meaning, a warning of the invisible leash my family had no intention of releasing. Westfield University's sprawling campus felt like paradise after the suffocating atmosphere of home. Gothic architecture blended with modern facilities, and the art department occupied a renovated Victorian mansion at the edge of campus. For the first time, I was surrounded by people who spoke my language, discussions about brushstrokes and artistic movements that didn't end with condescending remarks about real careers. My roommate Zoe, a vibrant photography major with electric blue hair and an infectious laugh, became my first true friend. Through her, I met Garrett, a thoughtful literature student who hosted poetry readings in his apartment, and Isabella, a brilliant art conservation major who could identify painting techniques at a glance. These friendships developed organically, based on shared passions rather than social obligations or family connections. "You light up when you talk about Renaissance art," Garrett observed one evening as we studied in the campus coffee shop. "It's like watching someone fall in love." His comment startled me. No one had ever noticed or commented on my passion before. At home, enthusiasm was considered unseemly unless directed toward practical achievements. My classes challenged and invigorated me. Professor Lillian Montgomery, the department chair, took special interest in my analysis of female patronage in Italian Renaissance art. "You have a unique perspective, Amanda," she told me after class one day. "You see connections others miss." During winter break of my freshman year, I returned home with glowing grades and stories about my projects. My excitement was met with polite disinterest. "How nice," my mother said. My father was more direct. "These paintings are interesting hobbies, Amanda, but what marketable skills are you actually developing?" The gulf between my university life and home grew wider with each visit. While I blossomed at Westfield, exploring new ideas and developing my own voice, returning to Connecticut felt like shrinking back into a predefined box that no longer fit. Spring semester brought another life-changing development, Michael. We met in the campus library where he was struggling with an art history elective. As a computer science major, the subjective nature of art analysis confused him. I offered to help, and our study sessions soon evolved into coffee dates, then dinners, and finally a relationship that felt refreshingly equal. Michael's quiet confidence and genuine support contrasted sharply with my family's conditional approval. He asked about my artwork with sincere interest and celebrated my successes without competition. When my analysis of a little-studied female artist was selected for publication in an undergraduate journal, Michael organized a surprise celebration dinner. "I'm so proud of you," he said, raising his glass in a toast. "You're changing how people see art history." Those words, so simple yet so profound in their genuine appreciation, brought tears to my eyes. As my first year progressed, I reduced contact with my family to brief weekly calls. Each conversation left me emotionally drained as they questioned my choices, friends, and relationship. My mother's inquiries about Michael became increasingly intrusive. "What does his father do? Where did they summer? Is he planning a practical career?" she demanded, as though cataloging his worthiness through a checklist of status markers. During spring break, I chose to join Zoe's family at their lake house rather than return home. My decision ignited a 3-day Cold War of terse texts and missed calls. When we finally spoke, my father's disapproval was palpable. Family obligations aren't optional, Amanda. Your choices reflect poorly on all of us. My sophomore year began with a breakthrough project, a multimedia exhibition examining overlooked female influences in Baroque art. Professor Montgomery was ecstatic with my work and submitted it to a prestigious undergraduate competition. When it was selected for display at the Hartwell Gallery in Boston, I couldn't contain my excitement. The exhibition opening coincided with midterm break, and despite my reservations, I invited my family. To my surprise, they attended, dressed impeccably and wearing their public faces the masks they reserved for important social functions. My mother circled the gallery, collecting compliments from professors and critics, while my father networked with potential business contacts in attendance. Justin hovered near my installation, his expression unreadable as visitors praised my work. Later that evening, as we dined at an upscale restaurant, I noticed their behavior shifting. My mother questioned the practical value of the exhibition. My father inquired about the financial prospects of such work. Justin made subtle jabs about temporary success and beginner's luck. As dessert arrived, Professor Montgomery approached our table to share exciting news. She was recommending me for a competitive summer internship at the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Amanda has extraordinary talent, she told my parents. This internship could launch her career. The table fell silent. My mother's smile tightened. My father cleared his throat uncomfortably. Justin stared into his water glass, knuckles white around the stem. How nice, my mother finally said, her voice brittle. Though we had expected Amanda would come home this summer. Family traditions and all. That night in my hotel room, I received a text from Justin. Don't get too comfortable in your new world. You're still a foster first. The ominous message sent shivers down my spine, but I dismissed it as typical Justin competitiveness. I couldn't have known it was actually a warning of what was about to unfold, the beginning of my family's calculated plan to bring me back under their control, no matter the cost to my future. Spring break of sophomore year marked the beginning of my nightmare. I returned home reluctantly, already feeling like a visitor in my childhood house. The familiar scent of my mother's lavender candles and lemon furniture polish now seemed cloying rather than comforting. My third day home, I entered my bedroom to find my desk drawer slightly ajar. My journal where I'd documented my feelings about university life, my relationship with Michael, and my frustrations with my family was misaligned from its hiding place. Heart pounding, I checked my laptop and discovered recent activity during times I'd been downstairs. That evening, my mother casually mentioned details about Isabella she couldn't possibly have known. Your friend with the troubled family background, she said, stirring her tea. Such a shame about her father's drinking problem. I'd never told them about Isabella's family struggles. The realization hit me like a physical blow. They had read my private journal and accessed my email account. When confronted, my parents didn't deny it. Instead, they justified their invasion. We're concerned about your choices, my father said, his voice eerily calm. These new friends seem to be influencing you negatively. And this boy Michael, my mother added. He doesn't come from the kind of family we associate with. His father is a high school teacher, Amanda. A teacher. The disgust in her voice made my stomach turn. Before I could respond, Justin entered the living room, phone in hand. Your Instagram shows you at parties with art students, he said, scrolling through photos I'd been tagged in. Drinking wine at gallery openings. Staying out late with that boyfriend. You've been spying on me? I whispered, the betrayal burning in my chest. Looking out for you, my father corrected. Justin has been keeping us informed about your social media presence. We're worried you're losing focus. What followed was a 2-hour intervention where they listed their concerns. My artistic pursuits weren't practical, my friends weren't socially advantageous, my relationship was distracting me from family obligations. They had alternatives planned, transferring to a business program at a university closer to home, an internship at my father's firm, introduction to suitable dating prospects from their social circle. "We only want what's best for you," my mother insisted, reaching for my hand. I pulled away, anger and hurt coursing through me. "You want what's best for your image. You've never once asked what I want." I returned to Westfield a day early, determined to create more distance between myself and my family's suffocating control. But strange incidents began occurring almost immediately. An essay I'd saved on my laptop disappeared the night before it was due. A project for my art conservation class was damaged despite being safely stored in my locked studio space. My research notes for a major paper were mysteriously altered. At first, I attributed these. Zoe suggested someone might be accessing my accounts. Michael, with his computer science background, offered to check my laptop security. "Amanda, someone's been accessing your accounts remotely," he said, pointing to unfamiliar login locations. "This IP address is from New Haven." New Haven, where Justin attended law school. "There's sophisticated spyware installed too," Michael continued, his face grim. "It would require physical access to your computer initially." My stomach dropped as I realized when it must have happened during spring break, when I'd found my belongings disturbed. I couldn't bring myself to believe my family would deliberately sabotage my education. Surely this was Justin acting alone, driven by sibling rivalry? Even as I thought it, I knew better. The coordinated nature of these attacks suggested multiple actors. I changed all my passwords, installed security software, and kept my laptop with me constantly. For a few weeks, the incidents stopped, and I began to relax. Then came the email that would change everything. "Dear Ms. Foster, the Academic Integrity Committee requests your presence regarding serious allegations of academic misconduct. Evidence suggests you have been selling term papers to other students. Your academic standing is under review." The accusation was ludicrous. I had never sold papers or cheated in any way. But when I logged into the university system to access my student account, I discovered dozens of incriminating messages in my university email correspondence with students discussing paper sales, price negotiations, and delivery methods. All dated during times I could prove I was in class or at work. "This is impossible," I told Michael as we stared at the fabricated evidence. "Someone created these emails to frame me." "The system logs show they originated from your account," he said, his voice troubled. "This is sophisticated. They've covered their tracks well." The realization crashed over me like a wave. This wasn't just harassment or sabotage. This was character assassination, a calculated effort to destroy my academic career. And I knew exactly who was behind it. I called my parents that night, desperate enough to confront them directly. "Amanda, these accusations sound serious," my father said, his tone concerned yet somehow satisfied. "Perhaps this is a sign that you should reconsider your educational path." "We always thought that scholarship was too good to be true," my mother added. "Art schools have such questionable standards." They denied involvement, but seemed suspiciously informed about details I hadn't shared. As I hung up, Justin sent a text. "Difficult situations often bring people back to what matters most: family." The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. My family wasn't just trying to control me. They were systematically dismantling the independent life I'd built, engineering my failure to force me back under their influence. The question was no longer whether they were behind it, but how far they would go to succeed. The academic hearing was scheduled for the following Tuesday. I had 5 days to prepare my defense against allegations that could end my academic career. Zoe, Isabella, and Garrett rallied around me, gathering character statements from professors and classmates. Michael worked tirelessly to trace the origin of the fraudulent emails, hoping to find technical evidence of tampering. "We'll get through this," he promised, squeezing my hand as we left the campus security office. "The truth will come out." I wanted to believe him, but a persistent dread shadowed me. My family had resources, connections, and an intimate knowledge of my vulnerabilities. What chance did I have against their orchestrated attack? The night before my hearing, I received a call from my mother. Your father and I are driving up tomorrow. This situation sounds serious enough to warrant parental support. That's not necessary, I said quickly, alarm bells ringing in my head. Nonsense. We'll meet you at the administration building. Justin is coming too. He might have helpful insights from his pre-law perspective. Despite my protests, they arrived the next morning, the perfect picture of concerned parents. My mother in her tasteful pearl earrings and cashmere sweater, my father imposing in his tailored suit. Justin stood slightly apart, his expression a mask of brotherly concern. We're here for you, sweetheart, my mother said, embracing me with cameras from the university newspaper capturing the moment. My father placed a supportive hand on my shoulder, the gesture hollow as a stage prop. Professor Montgomery approached us before the hearing. Amanda has been an exemplary student, she told my parents. These allegations don't align with the dedicated scholar I know. We appreciate your support, my father replied smoothly. Though as parents, we sometimes see sides of our children others don't. The Academic Integrity Committee consisted of 5 faculty members and 2 student representatives. As we entered the hearing room, I noticed Justin speaking quietly with the university's IT specialist, Terry Lambert. They appeared familiar with each other, exchanging what looked like a subtle nod. The evidence against me was overwhelming and meticulous. Screenshots of conversations I'd never had. Papers found on my laptop that I'd never written. A money trail linking to an account in my name I'd never opened. Each piece of evidence more damning than the last. When my time came to speak, I presented. The committee listened politely but with obvious skepticism. Then came the character testimonies. My friends spoke passionately about my integrity. Professor Montgomery detailed my contributions to the department. Michael presented his technical analysis suggesting remote tampering with my accounts. Just as the tide seemed to turn in my favor, the committee chair announced, "We'd like to hear from Amanda's family." My mother stepped forward first, dabbing at invisible tears. Amanda has always been creative with the truth when it serves her purposes. As a mother, it pains me to say this, but she struggled with ethical boundaries since childhood. My father nodded gravely. We've tried to instill proper values, but Amanda has always sought shortcuts when faced with pressure. We had hoped college would mature her judgment. Their performance was masterful, the perfect blend of reluctant honesty and parental disappointment. Each word carefully constructed to seem supportive while systematically undermining my credibility. Justin was the final nail in my coffin. As Amanda's brother, "This is incredibly difficult," he began, voice thick with manufactured emotion. "But there's a pattern here that I've witnessed firsthand." He proceeded to describe fabricated incidents from our childhood times. I supposedly cheated on tests, took credit for others' work, manipulated situations for personal gain. Each lie more convincing because it contained tiny kernels of truth, events twisted and recontextualized to paint me as chronically dishonest. The committee chair then turned to the IT specialist. "Mr. Lambert, your technical assessment?" Lambert cleared his throat. "Despite claims of remote tampering, our investigation shows no evidence of unauthorized access. The papers, emails, and financial records originated from Ms. Foster's authenticated accounts and devices." Michael began to object, pointing out inconsistencies in Lambert's analysis, but was politely silenced. "We appreciate your input, but defer to our university's technical expertise." As the hearing concluded, I caught a fleeting exchange between Justin and Lambert, a subtle thumbs up. The pieces suddenly aligned with devastating clarity. Justin had connections at Westfield I hadn't known about. Perhaps Lambert was a former classmate or family connection. However it happened, my brother had ensured the technical evidence would support their narrative. The committee's decision took less than 30 minutes. Amanda Foster, after reviewing the substantial evidence, This committee finds you responsible for severe violations of Westfield University's Academic Integrity Code. The recommendation is immediate expulsion and revocation of your scholarship, effective today. The room spun around me. 3 semesters of hard work, recognition, and achievement erased in an instant. My artistic voice, my academic future, my carefully constructed independence, all destroyed by the people who should have protected me most. Outside the hearing room, away from official eyes, my family's masks slipped. "This is for the best," my father said, checking his watch impatiently. "You can transfer to the business program at Connecticut State next semester. Put this artistic nonsense behind you. We have connections who can minimize the academic record impact," my mother added, already planning damage control for their social reputation. "Sometimes you need to fall before you can be properly guided," Justin said, not even attempting to hide his satisfaction. In that moment, staring at their self-satisfied faces, something broke inside me. Not my spirit, my illusions. These people weren't family in any meaningful sense of the word. They were controllers who viewed my independence as defiance, my passion as rebellion, my success as a threat to their authority. "I will never forgive this," I told them, my voice steady despite the tears streaming down my face. "From this moment, you are no longer my family." My father scoffed. "Don't be dramatic, Amanda. You'll come home tonight, and we'll discuss your future options." "No," I said, backing away from them. "I won't. This is the last time you'll ever see me." My mother's perfectly composed face flickered with the first hint of genuine concern. "Amanda, be reasonable. Where will you go? What will you do without our support?" "I'll build something new," I promised, turning away from them. "Something you can never touch or destroy." As I walked away, Justin called after me, "You'll be back when reality hits. You have nowhere else to go." He was right about the reality part. Within hours, my university email was deactivated. By evening, I'd been locked out of my dorm room, my scholarship funds revoked. My carefully constructed world had collapsed in a single day, engineered by the people who claimed to love me most. What Justin didn't understand was that having nowhere to go meant I had nothing left to lose. And people with nothing to lose are dangerous to those who've taken everything from them. The days following my expulsion blurred together in a haze of panic and desperation. I couldn't return to my dorm room, couldn't access campus facilities, couldn't even collect my artwork from the studio without escort. The story of my academic fraud spread through campus with the speed only scandals achieve. Former classmates averted their eyes when they saw me in town. Acquaintances blocked me on social media. Only Zoe, Isabella, Garrett, and Michael stood by me initially. They helped move my belongings into Zoe's off-campus apartment, a temporary solution that quickly strained under the awkwardness of my sudden dependence. Michael remained supportive, spending hours helping me file appeals and complaints. "We can fight this," he insisted. The evidence was clearly fabricated. But university bureaucracy moved glacially, and without student status, I had limited standing to challenge the decision. Each appeal disappeared into administrative black holes, met with form letter rejections or silence. The strain began affecting my relationship with Michael. Our conversations, once filled with shared dreams and intellectual debates, narrowed to endless discussions of my case and uncertain future. "Maybe you should focus on transferring somewhere else," he suggested one night, exhaustion evident in his voice. "Start fresh, where your family has no influence." "With an expulsion on my record?" I replied bitterly. "What reputable program would accept me?" 2 months after my expulsion, Michael received an internship offer from a prestigious tech firm in California. We both knew what it meant for our relationship. "I'll turn it down," he offered, though his eyes betrayed his conflict. "We'll figure something out together." "No," I said, finding strength somewhere in my depleted reserves. "You need to go. This is your dream opportunity." Our goodbye at the airport broke something in me that I hadn't realized was still intact, my belief that love could withstand the destruction my family had wrought. Financial reality hit next. My savings, meager to begin with, evaporated quickly. Zoe's generosity had limits, especially when her roommates began complaining about the extra person in their small apartment. I found myself moving to a tiny studio in the worst part of town, a single room with peeling wallpaper and temperamental plumbing that consumed most of my remaining funds. Finding employment proved nearly impossible. My sudden withdrawal from university raised employers' suspicions. The art galleries and museums that had once welcomed me as a promising student now returned my applications with polite rejections. I finally secured a position waiting tables at a 24-hour diner, working overnight shifts that paid just enough to cover rent and ramen noodles. Depression settled over me like a physical weight. I stopped painting, stopped visiting museums, stopped seeing the few friends who remained loyal. My world contracted to the path between my grimy apartment and the greasier diner. Art, once my passion and salvation, became a painful reminder of everything I'd lost. "You don't look well, honey," Marge, my 60-something coworker, observed one night as I mechanically refilled coffee cups. "You're fading away before my eyes." She wasn't wrong. I'd lost 20 pounds, my clothes hanging from my frame like borrowed items. Dark circles shadowed my eyes. My hair, once carefully maintained, hung limp and dull. Rock bottom arrived on a rainy Tuesday, exactly 6 months after my expulsion. My landlord left an eviction notice the diner had cut back hours, and I'd fallen behind on rent. Walking home in the downpour, no umbrella, no hope, I found myself standing before the campus art gallery where my work had once been displayed. Through the rain-streaked windows, I could see a new student exhibition. Young artists proudly standing beside their creations, professors offering guidance, futures unfolding with promise. All the things that had been stolen from me. I sank to the wet sidewalk, sobs tearing from my throat. This was what my family had wanted to break me completely, to prove I couldn't survive without them. The worst part was realizing they were right. "Amanda? Is that you?" Professor Montgomery stood before me, concern etched on her kind face. She helped me to my feet and led me to a nearby cafe, ordering hot tea and listening without judgment as 6 months of pain poured out of me. "I've never believed those allegations," she said when I finished. The evidence was too perfect, too comprehensive. "Real misconduct is messier." She studied me thoughtfully. "I can't reverse the university's decision, but I have a community art studio downtown. There's a small apartment above it that my assistant recently vacated. It's not much, but it's yours if you want it." Her unexpected kindness cracked the protective shell I'd built around my emotions. "Why would you help me? I'm nobody now." "You're still an artist, Amanda." That didn't change with some administrative decision. The studio apartment was small but flooded with natural light. The communal art space below buzzed with local artists who asked no questions about my past. For the first time in months, I picked up a paintbrush, my hands trembling with both fear and longing. What emerged on canvas shocked me dark, jagged images of betrayal and loss, raw emotional landscapes so different from my previous academic work. I painted through nights, through tears, through rage, creating a visual language for pain I couldn't verbalize. Professor Montgomery introduced me to Natalie Barrett, owner of a small avant-garde gallery in the city's arts district. Natalie viewed my new work with intense interest. "There's something visceral here," she said, examining a particularly chaotic canvas depicting familial betrayal. "Something authentically painful. Are you interested in showing these?" "They're too personal," I hesitated. "Too raw." "That's precisely why they should be seen," she countered. "Art isn't just beauty, Amanda. It's truth." While continuing to work at the diner, I slowly rebuilt my life. I enrolled in online courses through a community college, not for credit but for structure and continued learning. I created commissioned artwork for local businesses under a pseudonym to protect against my family's potential interference. I began documenting my experience through a private blog, initially intended only as personal therapy. To my surprise, others found and connected with my story: students facing unjust academic situations, individuals surviving family betrayal, people rebuilding after personal catastrophes. "Your words gave me courage to challenge my own academic dismissal," wrote one reader. "I won my appeal because I refused to give up." Natalie's faith in my work led to a small exhibition titled Betrayal, a family portrait. The raw, emotional canvases attracted attention from local critics who found my unfiltered perspective refreshing in an often pretentious art scene. "Foster's work pulses with authentic pain," wrote one reviewer. "Her technical skill serves genuine emotion rather than academic showmanship." A local newspaper featured a small profile about my artistic journey, mentioning briefly the controversial expulsion without details. The article caught attention beyond the arts community, resonating with others who'd experienced institutional or familial betrayal. As my following grew, so did my confidence and financial stability. I moved from waiting tables to teaching evening art classes at a community center. I sold paintings consistently through Natalie's gallery. I built a small but genuine support network of friends who knew my full story and stood by me anyway. On the 1-year anniversary of my expulsion, I received an unexpected email from Professor Montgomery. "I've been quietly investigating your case with help from a colleague in the computer science department. We've found irregularities in the technical evidence. If you're interested in pursuing this further, I know an attorney specializing in academic cases." The email awakened something I'd carefully buried: not just hope for vindication, but a reminder that truth has a persistence that lies cannot match. My family had orchestrated my destruction with meticulous care, but they couldn't control every variable indefinitely. For the first time since walking away from them, I allowed myself to imagine not just surviving their betrayal, but transcending it completely. The path forward was unclear, but one thing was certain: the story they thought they'd finished writing had actually just begun. 3 years passed, each day another brick in the foundation of my rebuilt life. What began as a small exhibition in Natalie's gallery evolved into regular showings across the Northeast. My distinctive style, emotional realism with themes of betrayal, resilience, and rebirth, resonated with collectors and critics alike. The pain my family inflicted became transformed through my brushes into something valuable, something entirely mine. My tiny apartment above the community studio expanded to a converted industrial loft that served as both living space and personal workshop. The walls displayed not my own work, which sold too quickly to keep, but pieces traded with fellow artists, a visual representation of the authentic connections I'd built from the ashes of destroyed relationships. With Professor Montgomery's guidance and evidence from her computer science colleague, I connected with Catherine Lawson, an attorney specializing in academic justice cases. Initially skeptical about my chances, Catherine became increasingly intrigued as she reviewed the technical inconsistencies in my case. "The evidence against you is comprehensive, but suspiciously perfect," she noted during our first meeting. "Real academic misconduct leaves messy trails. This has the hallmarks of fabrication." We filed a formal petition for case review, presenting new technical analysis that identified suspicious patterns in the electronic evidence. The email timestamps contained millisecond markers inconsistent with normal university server operations. The financial records showed transaction patterns impossible to generate through regular banking channels. Most damning was the discovery that Terry Lambert, the IT specialist who had testified against me, had attended preparatory school with Justin. Their connection, deliberately concealed during my hearing, raised serious questions about witness objectivity. The university initially resisted reopening the case, but when Catherine threatened media exposure about procedural irregularities, they agreed to an independent review. The process moved glacially, but I'd learned patience in rebuilding my life. While the investigation proceeded, I channeled my energy into creating a foundation called Academic Justice Initiative, providing support and legal resources to students facing questionable disciplinary actions. What began as a small personal project grew into a recognized advocacy organization that connected wrongfully accused students with pro bono legal representation. "Your foundation helped me prove my innocence," wrote an engineering student from Ohio. "Without your resources, I would have accepted expulsion for something I didn't do." Each success story healed something in me that my family had broken. Each student who reclaimed their education represented a small victory against the type of injustice I'd experienced. My personal life blossomed unexpectedly when I met Thomas at a charity auction featuring my work. An architectural restoration specialist with kind eyes and patient hands, he approached art with the same reverence I did. Our relationship developed slowly, built on mutual respect and careful boundary setting. "I notice you never mention your family," he observed one evening as we prepared dinner in my loft. "That's unusual for someone whose art deals so directly with familial themes." I shared my story, expecting the usual shocked disbelief. Instead, Thomas nodded with quiet understanding. "My father was emotionally abusive," he confided. "Some families nurture, others destroy. The brave ones walk away and build something better." His simple validation, free from the skepticism or pity I often encountered, strengthened the bond between us. Thomas understood boundaries weren't walls, but necessary protections for healthy growth. 18 months into our review process, I received the email that changed everything. "The independent committee has completed their investigation of your case. Evidence of significant procedural irregularities and possible evidence tampering has been identified. The university requests a meeting to discuss these findings." The meeting included the university president, legal counsel, and the dean of students. Their carefully neutral expressions couldn't hide their discomfort as Catherine presented our complete findings, including newly discovered communications between Justin and Terry Lambert discussing the plan weeks before my hearing. Westfield University acknowledges serious procedural failures in Ms. Foster's academic integrity case, the president finally stated. "We are prepared to formally rescind the expulsion, clear her academic record, and offer appropriate compensation for damages incurred." The vindication I dreamed of arrived with an official letter of apology, reinstatement of my academic standing, and a substantial settlement that acknowledged the career and educational opportunities I'd lost. The university also implemented new procedural safeguards to prevent similar injustices, a systemic change that meant more to me than personal compensation. I declined their offer to return and complete my degree. "My education continued outside your institution," I explained. "Just in ways you don't measure with credits." News of my vindication spread quickly through academic and art circles. Galleries that had previously hesitated to work with a controversial figure now sought my work. Arts publications requested interviews about my unconventional journey. The settlement provided financial security I'd never imagined possible after my expulsion. Throughout these years of rebuilding, I maintained absolute silence with my family. I blocked their numbers, returned mail unopened, and instructed mutual acquaintances not to share information about my life. My family became ghosts present in my art, but absent from my reality. Until one ordinary Tuesday when an email arrived from an unfamiliar address. "Amanda, it's Mom. Please." I stared at the screen, emotions churning. Their world was collapsing under the weight of their own ethical failures, poetic justice I hadn't orchestrated but couldn't help appreciating. More messages followed over subsequent weeks. My father's carefully worded non-apologies, acknowledging unfortunate misunderstandings while avoiding responsibility. My mother's increasingly desperate pleas, fluctuating between guilt-inducing nostalgia and promises of changed behavior. Justin's surprising admissions of jealousy and regret, claiming personal transformation through therapy. I maintained my silence, but their attempts at contact escalated. My mother appeared unannounced at a gallery opening in Boston, only to be politely escorted out by security I'd arranged after being tipped off about her planned attendance. Justin created fake social media accounts to message my friends and colleagues. My father employed professional contacts to obtain my new address, sending formal letters requesting meetings. Their persistence triggered anxiety I thought I'd conquered. Nightmares about academic hearings returned. The hard-won peace I'd built felt suddenly fragile under the renewed pressure of their attention. "You don't owe them anything," Thomas reminded me as I paced our apartment, another unwanted gift from my mother sitting unopened on our table. "Not your time, not your forgiveness, not even your acknowledgement." "I know," I said, staring at the package. "But ignoring them isn't bringing closure either. Maybe I need to face them once on my terms to truly end this." The decision crystallized slowly but definitively. I would meet them, not for reconciliation but for resolution. Not in their territory or on neutral ground, but in the space that represented my rebirth from their destruction. I would confront my family surrounded by the art their betrayal had inspired, on my terms, with my support system in place. The gallery would become my courtroom, my art the evidence, and the truth my only weapon. After years of silence, I would finally speak not as the daughter they had broken, but as the woman who had rebuilt herself from the fragments they left behind. I chose the opening night of my largest solo exhibition, Resurrection, for our confrontation. The gallery would be filled with my supporters, my truth displayed on every wall through canvases that documented my journey from destruction to rebirth. If my family truly wanted to understand who I'd become, they would see it in vivid color and unflinching detail. Natalie arranged a private viewing room where we could speak before the public opening. Catherine agreed to attend as both legal counsel and moral support. Thomas stood by my side as we waited, his steady presence anchoring me against the tide of emotions threatening to pull me under. They arrived. "Amanda," my mother whispered, stepping forward with arms outstretched. I raised my hand to stop her advance. "This isn't a reunion. It's a conversation I'm allowing to happen once." They followed me silently. "These are difficult to look at," my father commented. "They were more difficult to live through," I replied evenly. I gestured for them to sit. Catherine placed a recording device on the table between us. "This conversation will be documented," she explained professionally. "For Amanda's protection." My mother flinched at the implication that protection from them was necessary. Justin stared at his hands, uncharacteristically silent. "I agreed to this meeting for one reason," I began. "Closure. Not reconciliation, not forgiveness, closure. I want you to acknowledge exactly what you did to me. We made mistakes," my father offered carefully. "We had concerns about your choices and handled them poorly." "That's not acknowledgement," I countered. "You systematically destroyed my academic career, my reputation, and my future. You planted evidence, manipulated testimony, and coordinated with Justin's contact in the IT department to falsify technical findings." "Amanda, surely you can understand we were trying to protect you," my mother interrupted, her voice trembling. "The art world is so unstable. Your friends seemed questionable. That boy was clearly wrong for you." "Stop." My voice cut through her justifications like a knife. "You weren't protecting me. You were controlling me. When I developed independence, it threatened your authority, so you demolished everything I built." I placed a folder on the table containing printouts of the evidence Catherine had gathered, the communications between Justin and Terry Lambert, the technical analysis proving tampering, the university's formal acknowledgement of procedural failures. "This isn't speculation or accusation. These are facts. Documented, irrefutable evidence of what you did." My father flipped through the papers, lawyer's eyes assessing the damage. "What exactly do you want from us, Amanda? Money? Public apology?" "I want the truth. Just once, acknowledge what you actually did without justifications or excuses." Silence fell over the room. My mother dabbed at tears with a monogrammed handkerchief. My father stared stonily at the evidence before him. Justin finally looked up, meeting my eyes directly. I was jealous, he admitted, voice barely above a whisper. You were doing something you loved and excelling at it. People respected you for your talent, not your family name or connections. I never had that. His unexpected honesty cracked something in the room's atmosphere. I accessed your accounts first, he continued. Planted the initial evidence. Dad suggested involving Terry. We'd been friends since prep school. Mom crafted the character testimony angles. It was coordinated, deliberate. My father's face flushed with anger. Justin, this isn't helping anyone. It's helping me, I countered. Hearing the truth for once. Justin continued despite our father's glare. When you were expelled, I expected to feel vindicated. Instead, I felt hollow. Watching your life fall apart wasn't satisfying. It was horrifying. My mother's composure crumbled. We thought you'd come home. Accept guidance. Choose a sensible path. We never expected you to cut us off completely. What did you expect? I asked incredulously. That I'd thank you for destroying everything I'd worked for? We expected you to see that you needed us, my father replied, finally dropping the pretense. That your independence was an illusion. That family loyalty should supersede personal ambition. His brutal honesty, though lacking remorse, provided the acknowledgement I'd sought. They had deliberately ruined my life, not through misguided concern, but through calculated control. If you want any relationship with me moving forward, I said carefully, these are my non-negotiable conditions. First, public acknowledgement of what you did to the university community and our social circle. My father stiffened visibly. Second, professional therapy individually and as a family with documentation of attendance and progress. My mother clutched her handbag tighter. Third, financial reparations not to me, but to my academic justice initiative, funding legal support for students facing similar situations. These terms are excessive, my father began, slipping into negotiation mode. They're not negotiable, I interrupted. You asked what I want. This is it. Acknowledge the truth publicly, commit to changing through therapy, and make amends by helping others. And if we agree, my mother asked tentatively. What then? Then we attempt limited, structured contact. No promises beyond that. My father stood abruptly. This is unreasonable. Public admission would damage my professional standing irreparably. Your actions damaged my life irreparably, I countered. Accountability isn't punishment. It's the minimum requirement for moving forward. Harold, my mother pleaded, perhaps we should consider. I will not destroy my reputation to appear. He stormed out, the door closing with definitive force behind him. My mother sat frozen, torn between following her husband and staying with her daughter. Mom, I said quietly, for once, make your own choice. Indecision played across her face. I need to think, she finally said, rising shakily. This is a lot to process. She paused at the door. Your work is powerful, Amanda. I wish I'd seen that sooner. Then she was gone, hurrying after my father. Justin remained seated, studying the painting of academic destruction before him. I'll do it, he said simply. All of it. The public acknowledgement, the therapy, the reparations. Not to get back into your life, but because it's right. His unexpected acceptance startled me. Why now? Because losing my job for the same type of ethical violations I committed against you made me realize I'd become exactly what Dad raised me to be, successful on paper, but hollow inside. He met my gaze directly. I don't expect forgiveness, Amanda. I just want to stop being the person who could do this to his sister. His sincerity, imperfect but genuine, was the first real connection I'd felt with any family member in years. Not enough for forgiveness, but perhaps a starting point for something new. Start with the therapy, I told him. We'll go from there. The months that followed brought unexpected developments. Justin followed through on every condition, publishing a detailed apology in the university paper and committing to weekly therapy. My mother began attending family counseling sessions without my father, her tentative steps toward independence both fragile and significant. My father remained estranged, unwilling to acknowledge wrongdoing. His absence, once painful, now felt like the honest outcome of his choices. Some relationships cannot and should not be salvaged. Through carefully structured interactions, I allowed Justin and eventually my mother limited places in my life not as the family they once were, but as people demonstrating genuine change. Our new relationships had clear boundaries, mutual respect, and no obligation beyond what felt healthy in each moment. My foundation grew, eventually helping overturn dozens of unjust academic dismissals nationwide. The settlement money funded scholarships for art students from controlling family backgrounds. My work continued evolving beyond themes of betrayal toward exploration of chosen family, boundaries, and resilient growth. Thomas proposed on the 4th anniversary of my university vindication, understanding the significance of reclaiming that date with new, positive meaning. We created a home defined by mutual support rather than control, proving family could be chosen and constructed with intention. My most acclaimed exhibition, Forgiveness Without Forgetting, explored the complex terrain of moving forward while honoring painful truths. The central piece showed a woman standing at a crossroads, looking back at darkness, but walking toward light, carrying the lessons of the shadow with her into the brightness ahead. The true healing came not from confronting my family, but from creating a life so fulfilling that their betrayal became just one chapter in a much larger story. The pain they inflicted didn't disappear, but its power diminished as my own power grew. If you've stayed with me through this story, I hope you've found something useful for your own journey. Whether you're facing betrayal, rebuilding after devastation, or setting boundaries with toxic relationships, remember that healing isn't a destination, but a direction. Some days you'll move forward inches, other days miles, and some days you might slide backward, but the overall trajectory matters more than any single step. What's your experience with family betrayal or setting difficult boundaries? Have you had to rebuild after someone tried to break you? Share your stories in the comments below. Your words might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. If this resonated with you, please like and subscribe for more authentic conversations about resilience and growth. Thank you for witnessing my journey, and remember, sometimes the family we create matters more than the family we're born into.